Hello, I'm David Johnson, and welcome to this inaugural episode of JP200, celebrating the bicentennial of Jefferson Parish. I am the Director of Marketing and Engagement at the Jefferson Parish Library, and joining me today is Dr. Cyril Labanek. He is the Director of the American Italian Collection, which is located at the East Bank Regional Library, a colleague of mine. And just this last year, 2024, Jefferson Parish Library marked its 75th anniversary. So we have many reasons to celebrate the bicentennial plus the anniversary of the library. And today we're here to discuss the history of the Jefferson Parish Library and how that system grew along with the parish, particularly in the post-war years. So welcome, Stuart. Glad to have you here.
This is awesome.
And we're going to start not at the beginning of Jefferson Parish's history in 1825. We're going to fast forward to the 1930s. We're going to start seeing in that era how Jefferson Parish began to experience phenomenal growth. And with that growth, of course, was the establishment of a library system, which, again, we're very proud of. And Cyril, I'll let you start by describing what was the kind of the scene that was setting up the establishment of the library system in the parish.
Right. Well, Jefferson Parish was always an outlier. In fact, Metairie is a corruption of the French word for sharecropper. So we were an agricultural parish that was a feeder to all the hustle and bustle of Orleans Parish. And so in the 1940 census, we clicked in at like 50,000 people, and 70% of that was in Metairie. So it was really concentrated. Most of the parish was agricultural heartland. But what will happen is with World War II, after World War II and the boys came home, what happened was all the dynamics shifted. We had higher incomes, we had longer lifespans, larger families. With the GI Bill, we had educational opportunities. Also, the GI Bill provided mortgages. You could get your first mortgage through the War Department and at very great terms. And then out here in Jefferson Parish, the land was very inexpensive, and things like land assembly were perfectly fine. There was not a lot of bureaucratic paperwork or obstacles to organizing a subdivision. And so what happened was the parish really started to grow. Oh, and there was like lower crime rates and just all sorts of dynamic forces that were like, come here to Jefferson Parish. So the 1950 census, we're up to 104,000. The 1960 census, we're at 209,000. In the 1970 census, we're at 339,000. And it's interesting, in the 80 census, we hit 455,000. And today, in the 2020 census, we're at 441,000. So we sort of plateaued, and it's kind of, we're in this demographic holding pattern, if you will, now. But the parish just grew by leaps and bounds. And most decidedly, and this is when you're going to see the beginnings of the suburban subdivisions, and everybody has a yard and has trees, and cars are affordable, and gasoline is cheap, and
Ta-da! Yeah. The rapid development.
And
yes, for many major American cities have started to deteriorate, especially through the wartime years when there were shortages, and after the war, a fresh new start.
Oh, most certainly.
Kind of an empire, folks looking for greener pastures.
Oh, absolutely.
A lot of this area was literally pasture.
Oh, yeah. And the transportation network rose to meet. I mean, we already had Airline Highway and Jefferson Highway, which actually, it's interesting, Jefferson Highway starts in Calgary, Canada, and ends in like downtown in the CBD, which is kind of interesting. But what you'll see is this is, and during this period, we'll see those arteries really grow. But then also in the early 50s, we will fund and build Veterans Memorial Highway, which is written now, it's a boulevard, of course, but back then it was a highway. But then we'll have I-10 come through. And then at the same time, we're going to see the Causeway Corridor and the Greater New Orleans Bridge. And this is all by like 1960. And so the land is there, the people are moving in, the businesses are putting down roots, and it's pretty easy to get from point A to point B by a road network. And in consequence, it's going to allow Jefferson Parish to really blossom.
Of course, those were the years of the baby booms.
Absolutely.
One thing that is usually a necessity in childhood and youth is a public library, especially in an era when books and all information was pretty much stored solely at these civic institutions. So tell me about the first library that opened. Or where was it, and what were the circumstances that led to it?
Right. Well, that was really interesting because it was not high on most people's lists back in 1944. And he was a good governor, but Sam Jones, actually, they call him the civics textbook governor, and he was pretty good. But he came within a hair's breadth of vetoing library funds. And then he was reminded that we were 48 out of 48 in terms of literacy. And so but 2 years later, Governor Davis did veto library funds. Well, his horse didn't read, so why did the people need to read, right? Somewhere in there, yes. But what'll happen is we will get the funding, and so what's going to happen is we're going to see, that's why November 30th, 1949 is our 75th anniversary, because that will be when we get our first branch open. And what's going to happen is it's over on, it's in Gretna, at Huey Long and 4th Avenue. And it was really interesting. The first branch was the library, and it was also the headquarters. And the library shared a building with Carlos Marcello, and this is where his people counted all the slot machine money. So there's a really great image of these prim and proper librarians walking past tables of nickels and dimes and quarters to go do their job and open up shop. But what they did was really brilliant, and they did have the funds for it. Was they opened up a whole series, what they called demonstration libraries. And what we did was I wasn't born yet, but what they did was they rented out space in a strip mall or a convenient building, like, for example, the Harahan branch was actually in City Hall and things like that. But they would rent out a building, office space, and open up a branch. And like I said, it's called a demonstration branch. 4 hours on weekdays, 2 hours on Saturday, closed on Sundays. And the idea was sort of like give everybody a taste of having a public library system. And that worked really well. And so what's happened is really amazing. So the first branch opens there in Gretna on November 30th. The very next day, they opened a branch on Metairie Road. And then December 5th and 6th and 7th, and they opened up branch after branch. They opened up the Jefferson branch and the Kenner branch, and they also opened up it was called please, I have to cheat. Please forgive me. I do come prepared. It was called the Webster Carver Library, which is now the Rosedale branch, but that was what they called the Colored Library, because of course this is 1949. And then they opened up all these branches at the same time, and then in beginning of 50, in January they opened up a branch on Grand Isle, and then in February of 50 opened up the second colored library on the West Bank called Walkertown. And so what happened was, but they did all this, they opened up like 10 branches in the space of 2 months and got them all up and running at the same time, and let everybody know how, this is what we can offer you. And at the same time in 1950, 3 bookmobiles, and they went around to every school. They made a stop at every Jefferson Parish public school once a week, and they had one for the West Bank, one for the East Bank, and then one for the 2 colored branches. So again, this is the dividing line. The Jim Crow reality is part of the library's history also, but they had it all figured out, and they put it all into place in a matter of months, and that's and from nothing. I mean, we had nothing, and then they put it all on the map at once.
Right. And obviously these proved to be very popular. You demonstration library, people started to attend them. They were became a part of the fabric of the community.
Yes.
Tell me about some of the early people who were influential in founding of this.
Well, the main person who really stands out was our first director. Her name was Bertha Dubinsky Hella, and she came from California, and she came with a wonderful raft of experience and her educational background, and she was our director for the first 3 years, and from 49 to 52, and she did a really splendid job. She was very, very efficient. She was very aware of the financial realities in which she had to operate, and in fact, she even she was known to be very very good in terms of diplomacy with the library board, and that she was quite a good cook, and she would cook gourmet meals for the library board when she was trying to wheedle a little extra money out of it. And the record has it that she was never turned down. So credit to her. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Gastronomically, absolutely. But and so what happens is it's just sort of and from there it's just she gets it launched. And what happens is yeah, that sort of that, first taste is free kind of thing. But it didn't take long. Within the first 5 years, what you start seeing happening is well, the big breakthrough is that the voters do approve millages and things like that. The state finds us money, but what happens is the people of the parish start voting for it too. And so what you see is that within the first 5 years is we start building dedicated buildings, facilities for a library branch, and we move out of the storefront, we move out of the rental property, and we open up a real library with real hours. And once that process starts, it's just a matter of phasing the temporary locations out one by one as the budget allows. Till eventually, when you get like in 1959, Lafitte, Terry Lafitte gets its first public library, and it's a dedicated, right there, boom. It's, none of this, halfway, compromise situation. It's, right out of the gate, and just go from there. So it was that sort of the transition worked really, really well in that respect.
And obviously, through Supreme Court rulings and cultural change, the libraries were integrated.
Right. The first 2 libraries were 49 and 50, and they were, again, Webster Carver in Kenner, and Rosedale's in Kenner, correct? Or is that Jefferson? Is it here? Okay. Yeah, my apologies. Sometimes they get kind of fuzzy with some. Yeah, but yeah, it's Rosedale now. And then, of course, Walkertown was in Marrero. And what happened was and then actually what's really interesting, in 59, they had it's called the Harlem Reading Room, which was a street called Harlem, which was where now West Napoleon and Causeway meet. And that was in 1959 because, what's interesting about that was in 54, the Supreme Court decision of Brown versus the Topeka Board of Education ruled unanimously that separate but equal was inherently unequal. But of course, remember the Supreme Court said desegregate with all deliberate speed. Well, what does that entail? And then of course, Southern Democrats really dug in. They had the Declaration of Constitutional Principles, and then they had this concerted effort that they called massive resistance. So protests, lawsuits, boycotts, and so forth and so forth. And so what happens is that you have the decision in 54, and in 59, we're opening up another, branch for, the colored library system. Oh, they had their own separate library cards, and there was no back and forth. Those cards, your card was good there, and their card was good there, and it was really divided. And what will really break it open is the 1964 Civil Rights Act. And then that's when the federal government said you have to desegregate. And so this is where you see the real upsurge in the sit-ins and the wait-ins and the swim-ins and all that kind of stuff. Well, they also had read-ins. And so especially young black people were coming into the white libraries to sit down and read. And there was never any violence. There was never, nobody ever disappeared or was beaten or whatever, but the police would be called and these young people would be arrested and taken off and be processed. And this generated another lawsuit that became known as a Supreme Court case in 66 called Brown versus Louisiana. And this time that was 5-4. It wasn't 9-0, which is interesting. But a 5-4 vote, the Supreme Court said that having access to books is just a civil right. It's a civil liberty. You can't have a desegregated system. And that's 66, and by 69, we had dissolved the segregated system. And so what happened was the colored branches were, well, like I said, the Webster Carver is renamed and repurposed, but like the Harlem Reading Room, its collection was reassigned elsewhere, the personnel were reassigned elsewhere, and that facility was closed. I'm not sure what happened with Walkertown, but so by 69, the system is fully integrated. Yeah.
And by 69, of course, Jefferson Parish had really solidified itself as a strong suburban entity. That kind of brings us more into the modern era, right? The library system. So where did you go from there? I mean, we see a lot of construction for it.
Right. Right. Well, for the library system, as we go into the sort of postmodern, which is always an interesting term, the postmodern era, for the library system, the first big moment was in 59 when they found out that the library would now be part of the Department of Recreation. And the problem with that was that put the library board at the mercy of people above them and shared budgets and trying to get their piece of the pie, if you will, and so forth and so forth. And it made for a fairly difficult stretch for the library. Still, they moved on. Like I said, we are still building these new facilities. One of the big breakthroughs for them was in 67, I believe it was the building on Causeway that became, and it was really interesting. That was originally just supposed to be an administrative building, a headquarters for the whole library system, but it was so popular and the location was so convenient that the library system, they actually put in their own library. They turned part of the building into a lending library because it benefited the public and it was highly trafficked, which was really kind of neat. 83, I think it was, they funded a study about growth, and actually this was actually $10,000 well spent, and the people that advised the library gave them good advice, and they gave them a blueprint for the future. 85, the Friends of the Jefferson Parish Library came around, which is really neat. 86, we stopped the bookmobiles, but we now have these outreach vans that go to shut-ins and like retirement homes, and and people with special needs and everything, which I think is very nice. And then I guess the big deal was in '97 when they build East Bank Regional, and they closed the branch on Causeway, and of course that's now the flagship. I mean, it's 100,000 square feet of books and magazines and patronage area, and 50,000 for square feet of administrative space, and 300,000 volumes. And it's like 40% of the whole collection, and the special collection. Ta-da. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, there's the kind of interesting architecture along the way.
Yeah.
So the Lakeshore Library,
Right.
which is fairly new and very modern
Yes.
design, but previously it was a little more state.
Right. Well, that was the last before East Bank Regional '97. Lakeshore went up in 1995, and there's pictures of it, and it looks like a very, very uninviting Lutheran church. and apologies to all the good Lutherans out there watching this. But that place was just done in by Katrina. It took massive damage. And so they rebuilt. So now which I personally think, and there's some very lovely branches out there. I mean, Live Oak and the Harahan, East Bank Regional itself. There's some very lovely buildings out there, but I think that the Lakeshore branch is particularly, attractive, very, very nicely done architecture. And that was post Katrina. And so that's the major one. But yeah, some of the branches are really they're really handsome buildings, or in some cases they've been there a long time, they've soldiered on, and they have a certain sort of like they've just become such an integral part of the community that they have a certain appeal to them that I think shows through a lot too. Absolutely.
Encourage all the viewers to visit all
Yes.
15 branches
Absolutely.
of the Jefferson Parish Library, soon to be 17th,
Yes.
a new branch in Avondale.
And don't forget Grand Isle. They have a lovely branch in Grand Isle.
Beautiful. So
Absolutely.
it looks out over the Gulf.
Absolutely.
And I'm also a big fan of Lafitte's, which has an incredible wall of windows that was right out into the cypress swamp.
Yes.
You almost feel like an alligator centipede.
And if it rains enough, it probably will. So, but yes, it's a very well-run organization, and the buildings. Yeah, we don't have any of that, brutalist nonsense. It's very nicely. They're built. Absolutely, for sure. That's a great way to put it.
Regional has an interesting series of small courtyards, air windows that are decorative and such. Places that you can not just read a book, but look up and enjoy the setting.
Yes. Wow. Yeah. In fact, and some of the areas are even open for people to eat and drink, which is really nice. All we need now is a first-class coffee shop, and we'll be all set.
That's on the wish list. Maybe future. We would say that the library has redefined itself in many ways over the years. Of course, when it first opened, they were largely repositories for books, when books were less common, certainly well before the internet. But now we have services many people might not even think of. We have a library of things that allows people to come in and check out cookware. You can bring home an air fryer or a KitchenAid mixer, anything you might need and throw that big party, even a crawfish boiling pot, as well as recreational items for children. Again, Library of Things, which is a relatively new initiative. We also have an Experience Pass program where you can come in and get limited numbers of tickets to cultural institutions in the city, like the New Orleans Museum of Arts or the World War II Museum, the Historic New Orleans Collection, the Lighthouse at West End, which is operated by the Pontchartrain Foundation, and select performances at the Jefferson Performing Arts Society. An incredible array of audiobooks, many digital apps, everything from pre-streaming movies on Canopy, audiobooks on Hoopla, more than 2 million songs on Freegal, our music streaming app, auto repair services for veterans through VetNow, live homework tutoring on, I believe, 2 apps. You just have to go to our websites, jplibrary.net, and you'll see the full array. But of course, we also want you to come in the doors and visit us. Our 2 regional branches, the West Bank Regional and the East Bank Regional, are open 7 days a week. The others are open 6 days a week. Again, you can find all the hours at our website. So, Cyril, kind of perhaps wrapping things up, what do you think is the vision of the future, or building on our past?
Oh, that's a really good question, and nice and narrow, so I can answer it quickly now. It is. I would say that it's. I like the outreach, the concept of the outreach. I like the idea of trying to bring as much utility and use and engagement and even enjoyment for the community, and to bring more patrons in for all. I mean, on top of all the services, I really appreciate all the events that we host, things for kids and for the teenagers and young adults, for the retired crowd, for the jigsaw puzzlers and the board gamers and the mahjong and the lectures. And I just think that we even had a Swifty Palooza, right? And yeah, you see, and I just think that just overall, that's what I think the future is that come for the books and stay for the event. And I think the library, I think we're already doing that, and it seems to me that that's the direction that we're going to be taking, and accomplishing even more in that endeavor as time goes on.
Yes, as we like to say, we're about collections, but we're also about connections. And we encourage every resident of Jefferson Parish to come and get a free library card and to take advantage of all the services, all the programs that we offer year-round. And with that, we, again, are thrilled to be celebrating 75 years in service and as a integral part of the bicentennial of Jefferson Parish.